Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. The point is, Dave, they win on the road. Carson Wentz, it seems that it's almost too good to be true, right?
Yeah. I mean, 5-1, and Carson Wentz, like you said, and they're running for the MVP. He's being hailed as the savior, and everything's all good in Eagles land.
He's at the top of that list. Are you surprised when you saw that his odds were the best in the league?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm not so sure he's the MVP of the Eagles, let alone the league. But he's doing a very good job. But when you're a good team and you have that kind of record, you're going to get that kind of attention and those kind of accolades. But as Zach Ertz was quick to point out yesterday, there's still a long ways to go here. 10 more games can happen.
He told you the difference between 6-1 and 5-2 is huge. This is a really big game because, if you're 6-1, it's not just the record; it's how far of a difference there is between you and Washington, who now you would have beaten twice. And then, depending on what happens with Dallas, I mean, you're going to definitively be at least 2 games up. And over Washington, you've beaten them twice. I mean, this is going to be a huge gap between you and number 2.
Yeah, this would essentially, I think, give the Eagles the division, barring a collapse on the stretch, but. You're right. I mean, not just being 6-1, but being 6-1 with who you've beaten. That goes a long way towards establishing your credibility within the conference and with the league. So that would be a huge boost for them in terms of the NFC East, and also keep them ahead of all those other contenders. Like I don't know if Green Bay's going to be able to hang on, but if Atlanta lurking there, Carolina, New Orleans, everybody's been talking about lately. So you have to keep winning if you can just to stay ahead of the other rivals.
And it seems that it's contagious around the locker room. You said Ertz, they don't want to put a lot of stock in it. 10 games left. Nigel Bradham, we're treating Monday night like a championship game. It seems that they sense that Monday night can really be, I don't want to say a knockout blow, but a standing 8.
Yeah, it's been. And I think that's you can give credit to Doug Pederson for that. I think he's the one who's kind of instilled in them the attitude that they have about not getting too full of yourselves, not getting too and staying grounded and on an even keel, and just taking it's definitely a cliche, but they keep saying we just want to be 1-0 this week, and so far that approach has worked pretty well. Like they haven't gotten too disappointed, after their one loss, and. Not too hyped up after their wins. So I think they're sitting pretty good as far as just their emotional approach and their physical approach coming into the game.
Dave, you look at this game, and we just talked about it. I mean, if you win this game, you're 3-0 in the division. The worst you can go in division, 3-3. I mean, barring a collapse.
Right.
I mean, Monday night at home, is there any chance, and I mean, I know Eagles fans have it in the back of their mind, of laying an egg at home on Monday night after this long layoff?
Yeah, they kind of have that reputation, unfortunately. It seems whenever there's like a huge ceremony, Rocky shows up, or the opening of a stadium or something. And
the night they put Reggie's number up there, they lost like 42-0.
Yeah, B-Dog came back.
Yeah. Yep, and it's just this week they're retiring. Or they're putting David Akers in the Hall of Fame, and Monday Night Football. So there is cause to be a little bit
concerned,
hesitant, I guess. But you're right. If 3-0, you win this game. That pretty much. I think, as I said before, I think it kind of locks up the division for you, because I just can't see them losing, the next 3 down the stretch division games. So. This is definitely a big game in terms of ramifications.
Dave, Sidney Jones was eligible to come back this week. He's not practicing still. Ronald Darby, we all knew it was a stretch for him to play this Monday night. When do you expect, if all, we know Darby's going to come back at some point, but when do you expect these two back to be on the field, either one of them or together?
Well, I expect Darby in maybe another couple weeks. I think he's still a little bit ways away. And to be honest with you, I won't be surprised if you don't see Sidney Jones till next season, just because of the fact the way the defense has been playing. The secondary seems to be playing better than what they maybe had expected. So they don't see the need to rush him back. I know he's chomping at the bit to get out there, but I think they're going to err on the side of caution with him. And they still have a few weeks before they have to make any kind of decision, but I know that they're not going to rush him back before he's absolutely ready, and even then they might delay it for a little while.
Have you seen him around at all? I mean, does he look like he's still hampered or limping, or does he look like a guy who's certainly chomping, as you said, chomping at the bit, ready to start running around?
Well, yeah, I've seen him around, and you see him running sprints on out on the field and stuff before practice. But there's a big difference between running in a straight line and backpedaling and changing direction and all the things you have to do as a corner, and especially with an Achilles injury, it makes it even that much more difficult. So I know he wants to play. I mean, he really hasn't expressed it. He hasn't talked for a couple of weeks yet, but he seems to be giving that kind of indication that he really wants to get back out there. But I know they're not in any hurry to rush him back, and I don't think they will.
And Darby, who you guys just were discussing there, you think it's going to be a couple of weeks. What kind of role do you think the secondary will have once he comes back? Because guys seem like they're settling in. Patrick Robinson has been very good. I think Mills has done a really good job. Douglas is kind of settled in. So how do you think Darby will affect the secondary when he does return, positively or negatively?
Well, I mean, when Darby's healthy, he's better than any of those guys. He really is. And he'll be back out there as soon as he's able to be. And then they'll have to just find another person. It'll be Mills and Darby on the outside. The interesting question is whether you go with Russell Douglas or Patrick Robinson in the slot. But it's a nice problem to have, though, when you have that kind of depth in your secondary, which they probably weren't expecting to have. And to have all those guys playing at a pretty high level, it's going to make for an interesting dilemma, but it's a good one that the Eagles have.
Dave, when you look at how well this team has started to gel offensively, and the fact that we still haven't seen a breakout game from Alshon Jeffrey, from Torrey Smith, those 10 catches, over 100 $180, 2 touchdown games.
Sure.
Is this scary to say that this offense is only going to get more dangerous as the season go on, especially with Smallwood coming back healthy this week?
Yeah, I mean, it is. They haven't really hit their potential, like you said. There's a lot of weapons there, and on any given day, one or two or three of the guys can really break open. Actually, Zach Ertz was talking about that yesterday, where if you shut him down, there's really no reason that Alshon Jeffrey can't pick up, like you said, the 10 catches for $180, or Torrey Smith catch a touchdown pass or two, or even Nelson Aguilar, who's been nothing short of very impressive to this point. So, and you add in the running game with LeGarrette Blount and Wendell Smallwood coming back, and it's going to be a really difficult offense to contain coming down the stretch here.
Yeah, a lot of positives to go around. Is there? We're in the Delaware Valley. The Philadelphia fans are negative for the most part. We embrace that sometimes. Do you see negative? Do you see something that's concerning? Because I know I did read your column, Dave, that, you said, Super Bowl can be a word that we can start using.
Yeah, I said that last week, and only because I just don't see a dominant team in the NFC. Unless you want to count the Eagles in that conversation. But even then, they're winning games by 3-4 points, so you really can't call them a dominant team either, despite their record. But yeah, there is no team that can be considered like the odds-on favorite. You don't have a New England dynasty or anybody else that can make that claim. I mean, I thought Atlanta might be that team this year, but they've stubbed their toe a couple times now, so you really can't put them in that category either. Yeah. So I think that the Eagles are probably one of maybe 3-4 teams that have a realistic chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I can't really see at the moment. I can't see any really downside to the team other than maybe the offensive line being a little bit unsettled. You have Lane Johnson coming back, which is a huge help because I don't think Vitae played all that well on Thursday night.
Yeah, it seems that you look around the league. I agree. We do, our Find Five, Ugly Five, and finding 5 of the best teams in the league is a stretch. I mean, to say these are the 5 best teams in football right now is really hard to do, and you almost go into it being like, I really don't want to include the Eagles because I'm just not sure they're there yet. But when you look around the league, I don't know if you still do your power poll for the press, but it's hard to find 5 teams at the top.
Yeah, it is. There's probably like 10 teams that are pretty much bunched together when you combine the NFC and the AFC. I think Kansas City is probably going to stay number 1 in my rankings only because they beat the Eagles. So, but there's a lot of people that have the Eagles number 1, and you can throw in 3, like I said, 3 or 4 other teams. Green Bay is going to fade now, I think, but you have Minnesota, Atlanta, New Orleans, the Patriots, the Seahawks. I mean, you can put all those teams in in a hat and probably find a Super Bowl contender in there.
Yeah, and we know that 6 weeks into a season, you could be talking 4 weeks from now and looking back to 4 weeks and say, what happened over these last 4 weeks, you know?
Just look back to 2014. The Eagles were 5-1 then and didn't even make the playoffs. So, yeah, as Ert said, don't get too hyped up yet.
Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Dave, I know 6 weeks in, there's been a lot of great stories. What's been the surprise story for you throughout this great start?
Nelson Aguilar. I mean, I kind of thought that he would have a little bit of a bounce-back year. I mean, I didn't think he would be as bad as he was his first 2 years, but I've been really impressed with his performance, his production, his maturity, his focus. He's been really a pleasant surprise for me. I would probably pick him if I was going to pick one person.
Dave, what have you seen out of Doug Pederson that you didn't see last year that is making the Eagles so really impressive?
Well, it's not really like a tangible thing, more like of a feel or a sense that I get that, and I've mentioned this to you guys before, that he just seems more comfortable in his own skin as a coach this year and as a person really too. Last year he was, he had to scramble to put his coaching staff together. Had never been a head coach before. Made some questionable decisions, to say the least, on the field. But he just seems more of a leader, which is kind of hard to say. You can't be a leader with the head coach, but he's just been more assertive. He's I've mentioned in the past, he's very willing to listen to his players. Has a leadership committee that he relies on and meets once a week with to take care of any maybe possible problems or any questions anybody might have. And as I've said before, they stay afterwards with the younger players and get them up to speed with the game plan and stuff. It's just like the all-around atmosphere of the team just seems so much more positive this year and so much more. I hate to keep using the word focus, but they seem just more in tune with what's expected of them and what they expect of themselves.
How much do you
think the credit? I'm sorry.
How much do you think those comments from Lombardi, maybe behind closed doors, the guy said, "Let's show this bleep," he talked about our coach in that manner.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't put it past that. That probably did have some effect. Maybe they were just playing. Maybe wanted to play, for Doug a little bit more because of that, to show everybody that he is really a legitimate head coach and that they're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure people recognize that.
Your take on, I'd like to get your thoughts on because on the defensive side of the ball, they're playing really well, and they've won games without Fletcher Cox. Jordan Hicks had gone down. Darby's been out. They missed, the job and the respect that the defense, because it seemed like there was kind of like a mixed review on how the players felt about Schwartz, but obviously they're playing. He's got them playing at a pretty high level.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a disconnect, I think, in the beginning of the year where, you saw some stories where people were thinking Schwartz was kind of acting like he was the head coach, and there might have been some sort of miscommunication between him and Pederson as far as his role was concerned. But Jim maintained all along that, he's very much aware of what his responsibilities are, that Doug is the head coach, and he's made it clear that he respects that. And, Jim has been more adaptable than I remember him being in the past. More willing to blitz, more willing to rotate personnel, give guys a chance that maybe he wouldn't have given in the past. And it seems like every move he's making has paid off so far. I've been really impressed with him too.
When Wendell Smallwood comes back this week, if he does, is that number one? Is that the indication you're getting, Dave, that Wendell will play? And number two, do you anticipate that he kind of goes back to the front of the line?
I expect him to play. I don't think he'll be the front of the line, no. I mean, it's pretty clear that LeGarrette Blount's the number one running back on that team. But Smallwood has a pretty important role, not just as a running back, but especially as a blocker. He's the best in that, picking up blitzes, chipping guys when they come around the edge, and that's a talent that not too many running backs have, and he has it. So you're going to see him on the field a lot in passing situations, I think, just for that role.
Hey, they played already once in Washington. What did you take from that game that interests you on Monday night? What's kind of a storyline that you're taking from the opener into this Monday night's game?
Well, a lot's going to depend on if Josh Norman plays, and I'm looking to see how he matches up with Alshon. Like you guys have mentioned before, there's been, Alshon has yet to have that breakout game that a number one receiver is supposed to have, and I'll be interesting to see if they kind of go with him a little bit more on Monday. You would have to think the Redskins are really going to pay a lot of attention to Ertz, because he's been known to really burn the Redskins, even if the game doesn't mean anything. But, he's had games where he's had 10, 12, 14 catches even against them. So I would think if they concentrate on him, that might be opening up some things for Alshon. And that's probably the aspect of the offense that they're going to be looking at on Monday.
Hey, Dave, I don't know if you've seen that petition going around about Pete Morelli, but if it hits your desk, are you signing it?
Yeah, if I saw it, I'd probably sign it. That was just ridiculous. I mean, 26 penalties to 1, 126 yards to 1. I mean, it was just ludicrous. Granted, there were some penalties that were legitimate. I had a question with at least one of Jaden Mills' pass interferences. I didn't think that was, and LeGarrette Blount's unnecessary roughness. That was a joke. He was just blocking the guy. I mean, I don't know what else he's supposed to do.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad officiating in that game, both sides too. Missed calls, non-calls, calls against. I mean, and I guess you probably were there the last time he provided a disservice as well when he officiated with a.
Yep.
What game was that? What game did
Detroit.
he? Oh, the Detroit game. Yeah. Okay. Dave Weinberg, everybody from the Press of Atlantic City here on Weinberg Wednesdays. Here we talk Eagles as they get ready for that extra game or the extra day with the Eagles taking on the Redskins on Monday Night Football. You can listen to all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Dave. We'll talk soon, pal.
And by the way, I wasn't the only one that picked Carolina.
No, you're not.
All right.
I'm sure. Thanks, I'm sure the Twitterverse let you know it though.
Oh yeah, they sure did.
You and me both. All right, take care, Dave. Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City.